In this corner, the combination of 5 separate Zords, weighing in at a whopping 570 tons, the reigning champion, the Mighty Morphin Megazord! And the challenger, hailing from the depths of the ocean, weighing in at a mere 170 tons, the challenger, the first of the 6 Ranger Zords, Megazord! The Dragonzord! For all the Rangers in attendance and all of those watching at home, let's get ready to mecha battle! The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, a series about a group of teenagers who would transform into multicolored superheroes to fight against evil monsters with the help of their giant robots, was a major staple of pop culture back in the 1990s, with its popular TV show, toys, movie, and of course, video games. Lots and lots of video games that, self-plug here, I've already covered. But there's one from the era that you rarely ever hear get mentioned. Yes, the Super Sentai game. While it's more commonly known today, back in the 90s, before the internet was commonplace, you know, back when it was still new and full of hope, instead of the bleak, bot-riddled hellscape that it is today, none of us knew that there was essentially a Power Rangers overseas, and that what we were watching was just the action sequences from that version, spliced together with, like, I don't know, Saved by the Bell, and a lot of forced morals.
Weapons hurt people, and nobody deserves to be hurt like that.
And as such, like a lot of popular franchises that escaped the land of the rising sun during the 90s, it showed up stateside years later. So, it makes sense that instead of just porting a game from an aging console, we'd get our own shiny new games for our shiny new systems. But that also means we essentially missed out on the Nintendo version of Power Rangers. And you know what? Maybe that's for the best. Released for the Famicom in 1992 by Arc System Works. Wait, hold on. This Arc System Works? Wow, talk about a glow up. And man, first Jaws with Atlas and now this? Yeah, well, despite such an amazing dev, ZyuRanger is a very lackluster side-scrolling action game that honestly just feels half-assed. Minus a few niceties here and there. Like, for example, how the opening title screen has a very nice 8-bit rendition of the ZyuRanger theme song. And the keen-eyed among you will actually probably notice that the game appears to be in English. It's not. So, I actually do own a Japanese copy of ZyuRanger, though in this case I am playing a translated ROM hack, since there is one point in the game where it kind of matters if you can read it, but not really. It's optional. It's weird, you'll see. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, it's kind of personal preference here, the story is not that point. With every stage opening up with a nice portrait of Rita, or Bandora in this version, plotting to make children suffer. You do know you could actually do that legally as a teacher. Get yourself like a meager paycheck in the process, right? Regardless, the ZyuRangers version of Zordon still thinks we need to stop her, as well as the Rangers that you'll be controlling, as each stage is preset. I also want to mention that these 8-bit portraits of the Rangers are easily my favorite aspect of the game. They look so cool! Everything else, however, is pretty middle of the road for the Famicom, though the bosses could have used a bit more love if you ask me. So jumping in, the combat itself is pretty straightforward. You can jump, and every ranger starts every stage the same exact way, with their blasters, which usually takes about 2 hits to bring down most of their foes. 4 out of the 5 stages are actually pretty linear, with you just going from left to right, blasting everything in your way until you reach the boss. It's very, very simple and straightforward, really only weighed down by some terrible level design, relying too heavily on leaps of faith that can easily drop you into spikes or just put you right in front of an enemy you didn't know was there. Thankfully though, despite being an action platformer, there are no actual instant death falls, plus you have a pretty generous health bar, so it definitely offsets it a bit. But the damage will start to add up after a while, and there's only one way to heal. Throughout each stage, these what I can only assume are power coins, are scattered about. Collect 10 of them and you'll be treated to a cool 8-bit image of the Ranger Zords and full health. Just know though, that collecting them isn't mandatory, and unlike the Turbo or Car Ranger game on the Super Famicom, you won't miss out on the true ending if you don't collect them. Though, while on your search, midway through the stage, you'll end up coming across a doorway. This basically gives the Ranger their signature weapon, and a useful hint for the boss fight. The weakness is the beard.
You sure about that?
Now, the individual weapons are what make each Ranger play differently, though the quality varies. The Yellow Ranger's daggers suck. Just look at this attack. It is so awkward in close range, but it does more damage, so we're going with it. Though, to be fair, you can skip the weapon if you so choose, which honestly is very tempting against this first boss. As Finster here might actually be the toughest one. He likes to teleport around the screen and just throw putties at you, who for some reason also throw projectiles. Nice. Now, as we were told earlier, the beard is the weak point. But with our short daggers, I find myself getting hit a lot trying to get into his hitbox. Fortunately, you start with 2 lives, and death just drops you right back into the fight, so it ends up becoming more of a battle of attrition. After beating the first boss, we find ourselves low on lives, but the Green Ranger is here with a proposition for us. A mini-game. Which is completely optional, by the way, and here is where I'm going to give you the biggest warning I can. The mini-games are dangerous. So yeah, this is just like Mario Party. The first minigame offered up is Pong, with the Megazord facing off against the Dragonzord. Epic. And the third minigame is the Mega Dragonzord versus Scorpina. In Hot Potato. Woo! What exciting Zord battles! And yes, these are the only Zord battles in the game, as well as the only time we get to see the Green Ranger. But hey, at least he made an appearance on a Nintendo console this time. Winning at the minigames can grant you an extra life. And what's more, you can actually practice the minigames at the title screen against a CPU or a second player. So that's neat. But wait. The first and third minigame. I'm sure you're all wondering, what about the second? Well, here's where our patch comes in, as it's a quiz minigame. So realistically, if you can't read the questions, how are you supposed to answer them? Though, then again, I suppose if you've only seen Power Rangers and not ZyuRangers, does it really even matter? And here is where the danger lies. Failing at the minigame actually counts as a death. So yes, you can actually game over at them. And what's worse is that you get the password after each stage, but before the minigame. So if you die at the minigame, you don't get the password for the stage. So I usually skip them. But once again, to be fair, the passwords are only 3 symbols with 3 possible choices between each. So it is super easy to just guess your way back. Or in my case, mess up and end up further in the game. I actually sent myself to the final level multiple times. So that's cool, but for the sake of the review, let's actually keep things consecutive here. Stage 2 is just Bowser's Castle, with the Pink Ranger. If you played any NES or Famicom Mario games, you'll be fine. Pink also has the best weapon in the game, the bow, which is just a stronger, faster, more long-range version of the blaster. She is easily the best of the lot. Stage 3 is where things change up a bit, as it's the only non-linear level, forcing old Mega Man here to navigate a maze, full of even more leaps of faith and cheap hits. This is easily the worst level, compounded on by the fact that Blue has the worst weapon. Just look at this. Ugh. And look, it's the same exact animation as the Yellow Ranger. I swear, Japan or America, doesn't matter, none of the Rangers could escape reskins. Oh, and look at this too. The boss of this area is yet another giant, teleporting, projectile throwing enemy where I tend to take extra hits just trying to get into his character model with my dinky little lance. But now, unfortunately, since I'm low on lives, the battle of attrition has failed me. Replaying stage 3 for another shot at Batboy here. Thank you, passwords. I can't help but notice that every stage has the same exact music, only changing for the boss fights, which are also the same. Though, considering how short the game is, roughly 30 minutes, it's really not a big deal, especially since none of the songs are bad. Though, as a Westerner, admittedly, I do miss Ron Wasserman's rockin' soundtrack. Stage 4 is back to the linear layout, getting our axe, which the Black Ranger actually knows how to swing properly, though considering it's also a gun, it's whatever. The boss here is Goldar, and surprisingly, he's a lot smaller than the previous bosses, and a lot more stationary. Battle of Attrition. Stage 5 is the Red Rangers, and check out his sword. It's exactly like the axe, though this one also isn't a gun, so it's much more understandable. Our final boss is actually Rita or Bandora, which is honestly really cool. Until Rita's Rewind, decades later, we never actually got to fight her here in the States, or any of the other monsters that hung out in her palace for that matter, excluding Goldar of course. So that's genuinely pretty cool, though the fact that she's not much different than Goldar isn't. And Battle of Attrition. Yep, that's it. That's all we here on the west side of the globe missed out on back in the 90s. And honestly, I'm kind of glad that we did. While ZyuRanger isn't really a bad game, it's still a very short, easily cheesed, mediocre experience that just pales in comparison to most of the Power Ranger games that we would end up getting. And yes, I am counting the handhelds here. So I, for one, am glad that they didn't just cop out and port this instead of giving us what we did get. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Sentai fans, please don't kill me. I swear the Car Ranger review will be way more positive. That one's actually a good game.